It's Monday, September 8th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. Today on the show, we're spending the full 5-5 with Janet Morrison, Memorial University's new president and vice-chancellor. We'll talk about who she is, the challenges the university is facing, and the road ahead. All right, folks, so here's how today is going to work. I just mentioned we've got President Morrison here. We're going to have a discussion. Last week I asked for some questions. People have sent some in, so thank you for that. As the discussion is ongoing, if there's something that speaks to you or if you have a question, thesignal@cbc.ca for emails. The text line is open, 709-327-8206. President Morrison, how you doing?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me today.
Did you walk over?
I did not walk over because when I came in early this morning, I like to come in early, and today was a great day on campus. We were welcoming the incoming class, but I like to come in early and work out. Mm-hmm. And so when I left the house this morning, it was teeming rain. Yeah. And so I wasn't sure what the day was going to hold, so I drove over. But I am enjoying walking, navigating the campus, and getting to know it.
6-year term started August 11th. I know you've been walking around campus. I saw you out and about one day when we were there setting up for one of our shows. I think you were in the library, so I'm talking to folks. I know there's a lot of that going on. What have you learned about the university through these conversations since August 11th that you didn't know coming into it?
Oh, that's a great question. So I have worked in the post-secondary sector for a long time. I was a student and a grad student, and then have been an educator and a senior leader. But I think every learning community is different. I have spent the better part of the last month listening and learning from students and from faculty and from staff, from community members, champions of the university. The Canada Games gave me a great opportunity to engage with prospective students and from members of the community. I have learned that many residents of St. John's and certainly Newfoundland and Labrador more broadly have opinions on the university.
Oh, there's no shortage of those.
There's no shortage of opinions. I was telling folks that I do like to walk to and from where I'm living downtown. And it is not uncommon, or more precisely happens every time somebody pulls over their car to share their opinions. So I have learned that. And I see that as such a tremendous testimony to the university, its legacy, its importance to the province. I hear a tremendous sense of pride in Memorial. Memorial graduates, our alumni, the industry and community partners who rely on the talent that Memorial develops. I've heard a tremendous amount about belonging. People feel like the sense of belonging on campus really matters. And I've heard a huge value on the diversity of our campuses. I was really fortunate to have been up at Labrador campus and at Grenfell campus in the summer before I started. And at all of our campuses, one feels certainly a strong sense of belonging and a strong sense of pride, but you immediately get the sense of diversity of lived experience, diversity of opinion, diversity in terms of mode of expression. And I think that's really rich and vibrant and critically important. I've also heard from folks an enthusiasm for change. People know that change is needed, but in the face of change always, there's angst and nervousness, concern about how that change will impact people and the parts of the university in full that really matter to folks. And so I think that's normal. But in combination, what's really left the impression is the sense of pride, the sense of belonging, and the value of diversity.
You're listening, but what are you communicating about yourself to people? What do you want people to know about you? So whether it's someone stopping you on your walk from their car, or walking on campus, or in some of these meetings, the actual sit-down meetings that you have, what are you communicating about yourself?
Well, I hope I'm communicating in the way that I show up every day.
Yeah.
So again, I celebrated with our incoming class today. Chancellor Ludlow was there with us, faculty, staff members, celebrating the incoming class. Many of those students have met me several times already, and they haven't even had their first day of school yet. So they've been introduced to me, some of them over social media, via media more broadly. But I've also interacted with them, and in some instances, their families, as they're moving into housing or they're doing final advisement prior to formally starting classes. I've met varsity athletes. I want people to experience my curiosity. Mm-hmm. I am really curious about how things work, about how they could work better. I want to know what really matters, and I appreciate the generosity, the frankness with which people have shared that. I think, again, it communicates the sense of value and the legacy of Memorial University in the province. I hope people will see how I show up every day and take from that. We do need to rebuild trust. We can talk about building trust, but I actually think it's rebuilding trust. And I hope in the way that I show up every day and in my commitment to listening and learning, people will see me as a partner in that process.
Why do you think trust was broken?
Well, that's a better question for long service members of the community to answer.
But your read on it, because you just said to rebuild it. So
I've talked to some folks who express having experienced trauma or tremendous stress and anxiety. I think inconsistency in leadership is a big piece of that puzzle. I think the erosion of public confidence, which is not unique to Memorial, maybe something we can talk about, the erosion of public confidence in post-secondary education and universities specifically. I think the last 5 years have been difficult regardless.
Yeah.
We keep talking about post-pandemic, but the consequences of the pandemic for young people in particular, I think are going to last decades. So I think, all of that has combined and really inconsistency in leadership through moments of challenge. So I'm an educator. I pride myself on being vested in change and navigating change. We always talk about Sanford's model of balancing challenge and support. And so for growth to happen or to be maximized, whether that's individual growth or organizational growth, the key is to balance the amount of challenge that you are facing with a commensurate amount of support. And there is no doubt that Memorial is facing tremendous pressure, but there is also enormous possibility. And so our challenge right now is to figure out how we grow, how we rebuild trust, how we thrive in the coming years. And to do that, we need to, I think, be honest and frank about the challenges, and we need to figure out what supports individually and collectively we need to be successful.
So for speaking with folks, meeting students, their families, what are you hearing on issues that students are worried about, concerned about, that want to see dealt with on the student file of things?
Yeah, so some of this, again, not unique to students at Memorial,
No.
But students are broke. So I've talked to students about housing precarity. I've talked to students about food insecurity. And oftentimes what I'll get back from community members is that not all students are poor or struggling financially. That is absolutely the case. But there is a lot of data, both nationally and provincially, that speaks to finances as a real or perceived obstacle to attending school. And I think particularly at a moment in time when economically and socially we need talent, then we need that not to be an obstacle. So I hear that from students. Again, I hear a lot about housing. I hear a lot about food. More specific to the memorial learning experience, students are sometimes challenged to enroll. And so we've got some work to do on understanding that experience. I've met a number of new students just absolutely befuddled by how you access and enroll in classes and courses. And particularly for first-time participants in the post-secondary system, or, for example, for families who may speak English as a second language who are new to Canada, that process needs to be seamless. It needs to be pretty transparent, intuitive. I've heard a lot from learners about academic rigor. They're deeply vested in academic excellence, but some of our learners speak to the need for additional academic supports. Which certainly can be validated by some of our retention and graduation data. I've talked to students about their interest in having fun, which I think is really important. Life is pretty serious. The world is in a precarious moment, I would argue, and so I think ensuring that the journey, with all of its challenges, and no doubt with adversity included, that it's fun for students.
What is so the students? So
Yeah.
part of this discussion, and I think this is important, is when you talk about meeting people, is to go through and have folks hear what you're hearing, to have an understanding of what you've heard, and then where things might lead, right? Because there's a long road to that, and there's a bunch of different inputs that may factor into things. What have you heard from faculty and staff at the university, from professors?
Yeah, so I've had an opportunity to meet with some faculty. I have spent some time in research labs and offices, but you will appreciate that the campus has been reanimated as of this morning, and so I'm very keen to meet with a wider array of faculty members. I'll be at faculty council meetings. We have our first Senate meeting tomorrow. So those types of forums will allow me to interact with my academic colleagues more regularly. I've got one-on-one meetings set up with a number of faculty members. And then, as I've always done as a leader, I'll issue open invitations to faculty members to reach out to me. I think in many instances, faculty, we know that the most important relationship for learners, you can substitute around it, but the research is very firm that the most important relationship for a learner is with a faculty member. And so, no surprise, faculty members are close to the learner experience, and so access to course offerings. And when I talk about access, that's not just whether the course has been offered. It's what the prerequisites are, what the timing and scheduling of that, where it is in the academic calendar. It's what competing programs, again, how it fits specifically in the student's timetable in any given semester. So there is that. And there's also the issue that as Memorial struggles to manage its budget, some of those cuts have reduced course offerings. We're offering the same number of courses this year that we did last year, but there's no way that at some point the choices available will impact the path for some. So I hear that from faculty members. I hear a lot from faculty members about their appetite for stability and leadership, for direction about where we need to go. I hear an energy for priority setting. And I have heard some lament for the fact that the public conversation tends to be, recently anyway, tilted to the negative, which doesn't always allow for a celebration of the truly amazing work that is happening in classrooms across our research agenda and in service to communities across Newfoundland and Labrador.
Yeah, I think that might touch on the leadership part of it that you were talking about just a few minutes ago, because there's a lot happening at the university, but then when you have issues with leadership, news headlines, whether it's folks looking at the odes to the former president to everything else, that can take up a whole lot of oxygen in the provincial room of discussion for post-secondary. Have you sat down with the province yet, and the premier or anyone else?
Yes,
And
twice.
How did that go? How did those times go?
I thought both meetings went very well. So I've met with our minister twice. I have hosted the premier on campus last week for an announcement. I thought those conversations went very well. I think the province, consistent, frankly, with what I've heard from community members, acknowledges that this really is Memorial's moment. And I've heard a deep appreciation for the importance of Memorial University to the province. I've heard a genuine enthusiasm for working collaboratively to try and address Memorial's challenges. My messaging has been that the university needs to be vibrant, which means, particularly given our role in Newfoundland and Labrador, we have to be comprehensive. We have to position ourselves to offer what students want and need in terms of programming, curriculum, and pedagogy. The government in our conversations has been very receptive on that front. The flip side of that is, frankly, we also need to be viable.
What does that mean?
What does being viable mean? Well, currently, we have grown beyond our revenue.
Yeah.
So that recalibration, very difficult. And some of that work has already been done.
Yeah, $20 million in proposed cuts, right?
Yeah.
The Harris Center.
They're in progress.
Is done.
Those are in
Office of
progress
Public
and
Engagement
very
done.
difficult. Very difficult and lots of grief. But here's the thing, nationally, so funding for post-secondary education, federal, provincial, is down by 15% across the board since 2009. So nationally, across every province, universities are struggling with reduced revenue, all but a very few. Most of that is related to enrollment. The reality is that the number of young people, traditionally aged young people, has declined. That's a particularly acute situation for Newfoundland and Labrador, frankly.
Demographic tsunami, right?
Absolutely.
We are top-heavy
Yes.
for age. Sure.
And so this is our reality. It is our reality. And every institution across the country is dealing with this, again, except for a couple. And so the reality is that the competition for Canadian students to leave their home provinces has never been greater because everybody's incentivized to keep their own because there are fewer of them and everybody has talent needs, social and economic talent needs, right? So revenue is decreasing while costs, and everybody in Newfoundland and Labrador can appreciate this, costs have increased exponentially. The university's experience is no different. So we have a decrease in revenue largely related to enrollment, and we have significant increases in costs while we are dealing with mass disruption. So if you think about AI, for example, the institution has to respond to these disruptions, again, economic, social, technological. The university is facing, again, some skepticism about the role of universities and where we fit currently and into the future. So that combination of things, decreased revenue, increased costs, all at a moment, I would argue, of unprecedented disruption, is causing real challenges nationally. I would argue globally, but certainly nationally. We're not alone in this.
Did you ask the province for more money, though, for funding? Was that part of the conversation?
So what I have said to the province is that I understand that we have some work to do to get our house in order, but that it is my expectation that they come to the table to support Memorial in delivering on what the province needs from us. So, and I will continue to do that. And I think, championing Memorial is going to be easy. What I understand is important. A lot of the recent research on what matters to citizens and taxpayers in this province. Top of that list are things like healthcare and climate change, affordability for sure across the board. Memorial is a part of those, is key to solutions in those spaces, right? We deliver healthcare workers and leaders. We develop talent and deliver talent across, programs in business, pharmacy, that are critical to the province's success. The research that we're doing in climate change, for example, the work that we're doing in the Arctic, critically important to what matters to Newfoundlanders and Labradorians most. But I think people expect reasonably that Memorial position itself as viable. And our financial sustainability is going to take some time and attention. It's work that we're going to face head on that we've already started to address. But that's a key piece of the puzzle.
How do you figure out where the cuts come?
Well, so, what I would say is that what matters most needs to be safeguarded. So there have to be conversations in safe, transparent spaces about what matters most, and that's difficult. Before that can happen, though, Memorial needs consistency and transparency in its budgeting and management processes. And so we've initiated a process, for example, to develop a new budget model. So forever, Memorial has used an incremental budget model, which means that stuff gets funded more or more often less than it was the year prior. It makes it very difficult, first off, to understand how you're generating revenue and then how you're spending it. But it also poses significant challenges in terms of advancing priorities, because you may not want to cut everywhere. You may want to invest, and we don't have that capacity right now. I heard a colleague describe it yesterday, that we do a peanut butter approach, that we just spread the peanut butter over the toast. And if we have less peanut butter, then people are eating dry toast.
Yeah.
And we've got to figure out, we need the means and specifically the data and the processes to better understand how we're making money, how we're spending money. And so that's step one, and it's well underway. Those meetings are ongoing, and we hope to have a kind of first version of the budget model later this fiscal.
Okay. Back in the spring, I was, and some of this, you've touched on this, but then, I think we can dig a little further into a couple of areas that folks have been curious about with me. Back in the spring in May, the Office of Public Engagement invited folks to come together for a panel discussion on this question: what do universities owe the public? So Ted Hewitt was there, president of Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, gave the keynote. Afterwards, Mr. Hewitt and also Professor Emerita Barb Neese sat down. I moderated a discussion. Here's a clip from Professor Neese just on some of the issues around the university. Take a listen.
We cannot not be engaged at this point in history. We cannot, and we cannot mistake public relations for public engagement. It is not. It is not the same thing. We can have all of the, fancy ads that we want, all of the celebrations of 100 years that we want. That will not fix this problem. Because quite frankly, we have to be seen as actively engaged in the world around us and aware of and preparing to challenge deal with the fundamental challenges that are confronting us on all sides. Now again, it's not something we can do alone. It is not easy. This is not easy, because the work of universities is not easy, done well. Okay, it's a whole lot easier to get on social media and make a claim, that, EDI is taking over the world or whatever. And it goes and it blows up and it takes over, and you're saying, no, we actually, if you look at the evidence, right, there is, in fact, if you actually look at universities, and understand what it is that we do, but it's too late to explain that if you haven't been, in fact, engaged in that process and exercise collectively as a university all the way along. And again, demonstrating, don't be preoccupied with another building. Be preoccupied with the job that we fill in this society.
Professor Emerita Barb Neese there. So that was back May 22nd of this year, a panel discussion that I was at, and it was organized by the Office of Public Engagement. The St. John's office has since been cut in the latest round, as was the Harris Centre. I've got a question to follow shortly on the Harris Centre. But to Professor Neese's point there on, we can't mistake public relations for engagement. But where do you see engagement right now with and what Memorial University owes the public here?
Yeah, so I've spent the better part of my professional career championing the transformative power of post-secondary education, and for me, that impact is both personal and social. It's market and non-market. So I agree 100%, and I'm not going to speak to the conflation of public relations versus public engagement. What I'm going to do is champion and align on the imperative for universities, for post-secondary education broadly, to engage publicly and demonstrate service to the community. I think there is ample evidence to support that Memorial does this. Memorial contributes $627 million back to the local community. We're a top 20 research institution in the country, and we are a booster of innovation across key sectors in Newfoundland and Labrador. So I'm a good researcher, and so I took some time to go back and to listen to past episodes of yours. You, in fact, have celebrated awesome examples of our researchers, faculty members being actively engaged to do public good. And, whether we talk about the Center for Rural Health Studies or Smart Ice or Dr. Hodgkinson's work on ARVC, the incubation that we're doing across multiple sectors, but, to my great delight, across social innovation. Memorial was a partner on a grant, a $1.6 million grant for Choices for Youth just last week. There are multiple examples of if and how, when this is happening. It's interesting, before I walked over here, Memorial will be putting forward several applications for Rhodes Scholars this year, which is super cool. It's awesome. So for every one of those nominees, I have enjoyed the privilege of spending time with those students to talk about their experience at Memorial and how it shaped them. And I met with an amazing woman today. She's in her second year of medicine. She did her undergraduate degree here in science. This incredible community leader talked about her work on cultivating interest in STEM amongst young women across our province. She talked about her own work with Choices for Youth. She talked about a program and advocacy she was doing with our provincial government on increasing cultural literacy for rural medicine and the delivery of rural medicine, particularly telemedicine. Our students understand that the expectation of the university is to be socially community engaged and to act in service to Newfoundland and Labrador. I think our faculty demonstrate that commitment every day. It's something I think we should all be enormously proud of. I certainly am.
From my seat, when it comes to faculty, some reach out or some respond to media requests. Then there's others who not so much, right? And not everyone is good at talking on media. It's not something like to come in and sit on the radio and spend 5 minutes or 55 like on this show. That's not an even thing. But then if you have something like an Office of Engagement, or also where you have something like the Harris Centre that through vital signs each year would say, hey, we're trying to help make sense of this province together. Yep. And we're going to look at the things that are some of the research that's being done and how these big issues that are impacting Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, what's going on, trying to make sense of this world around us. But now some of this, like with the Harris Centre, it's lost. What's your response to folks who, and actually, as I just pin your answer for 1 second, I'll read an email from Mike Clare, former Associate Director for Public Policy at the Harris Centre. So I don't have to repeat myself from what I'm saying now. He says, Dr. Morrison, Memorial University has a long history of engaging not only the students and professors, but also citizens and community leaders, beginning with the Extension Service all the way back in the 70s. In 2004, the responsibility was taken over by the Harris Centre. Over 21 years of its existence, the Centre has undertaken dozens of workshops in every part of the province that brought together community leaders with professors, administrators, and students. Many useful and innovative projects have emerged from these events that have benefited both the communities and the academy. At a time when rural and remote areas are under immense strain, and at a time when the province needs to restructure its economy, Memorial's public engagement is more needed than ever before. Time doesn't permit me to talk about how the Harris Centre also helped the public understand complex issues of public policy, or how it generated research funding for professors and students, activities that have also disappeared with the abolition of the centre. Would you consider bringing back the Harris Centre, or if not, how do you plan to ensure that Memorial continues to contribute to the economy and society of the province? So again, Michael Clare, their former Associate Director of Public Policy at the Harris Centre, current community leader. You've already touched on some of this, but just wonder if you have thoughts for Mike.
I do have lots of thoughts. So it is not my intention to re-adjudicate decisions that were made prior to my start date. But let me just acknowledge that the decisions that were made, the decisions that have yet to be made, incredibly difficult. And I think in those instances where our colleagues and parts of the university are impacted, nothing should detract from a celebration of the good work that has been done. And I appreciate there's grief attached to the changes and the cuts. I think it's very unfortunate, without wanting to take away from people's good work again. I think the conflation of the closure of the Harris Centre with the university's with a perception that the university is no longer vested in public engagement. I don't think that's the case, and I think there's ample evidence to suggest that we do public engagement across every faculty, across every campus. The reality is that whether I spent the weekend, I'm sure people were doing much funner things, but I spent the weekend, I had previously reviewed all of the Auditor General's reports, but I spent the weekend, after having been here for a month, going through them again. And the Auditor General, that's not easy reading.
No,
and I have made a commitment to going through them as many times as I need to ensure that Memorial University is demonstrating accountability to our stakeholders. And our faculty and staff are stakeholders. For sure, our students are stakeholders. But the province and citizens of Newfoundland and Labrador are our stakeholders. And the direction in those reports was very clear. There was an expectation that we would look for opportunities to streamline, to find efficiencies. We have closed one of 2 offices of public engagement. We have we've made a temporary infusion of resource to bridge, to ensure good, positive, necessary work continues. And we have been very clear with every dean, every academic leader, that the business of public engagement, that Memorial's commitment to service to the communities and to the province is steadfast.
You're listening to The Signal. I'm Adam Walsh. Today we are spending the full 55 minutes with Janet Morrison, Memorial University's new president and vice-chancellor. We're talking a bit about who she is, the challenges the university is facing, and the road ahead. If you have thoughts for us, thesignal@cbc.ca. Or you can text us, 709-327-8206. We had an email come in. Let me see. This is where I read on the fly and try to and make sure everything's okay with email. You've spoken at length about the need to balance Memorial's budget. How do you reconcile that goal with the elimination of hundreds of faculty and frontline academic positions, along with 163 course sections in HSS, while at the same time creating a new vice president role with a salary of $290,000? The individual hired was brought in from outside Memorial despite strong opposition from campus unions, yet you continue to insist that you need 6 months to review all management positions. How do you justify that decision? And Arlette, who's that from again? It just says Jawad on that. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would argue that at a moment of financial urgency, I'm not going to call it a crisis, but I think some people would. So the circumstances that we are in now, again, as a consequence of decreased revenue, so it's very publicly known that our enrollment writ large was down by almost 5.5% last year. I don't expect that is going to course correct this year. International enrollment across the country is down by 50% as a consequence of many factors, including Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada changes in policy, but also, I would argue, the significant erosion of Brand Canada and a number of visa challenging issues that the whole country is facing. Our enrollment and our revenue are a crisis that demands attention from everybody on campus, and I would argue our champions off campus. Again, in combination specifically with an increase in costs, this is making for very difficult work.
Yeah.
And I very much appreciate and hear the concern about the impact on people. That is not lost on me. I think about it all day, every day. It's the first thing I think about in the morning and the last thing as I'm heading home at night. But in that moment, I made the judgment call, prior to starting, that at this moment in Memorial's history is not the time to not have senior executive leadership in finance. And so my commitment from before my start date, consistent with the Auditor General's report, is to review our senior administrative structure. I have been given 6 months to do that by the chair of the Board of Regents. Change is really hard. I mean, there are many in our communities who are very frustrated and nervous about that process. So change is hard regardless of whatever decisions we're making. There's folks who want all VP positions filled immediately. There are folks who don't want any filled. There are folks who believe some are more important than others. What I have committed to is to balance thoughtfulness and listening and learning with timely decision making. And so I will make those decisions before my 6-month anniversary, which for anyone paying attention is February 11th, 2026. But that's critically important. And I have explained that. I have met with our faculty association. I am meeting with other representatives of our bargaining units this week. I will be as clear and transparent about that as I can be. I appreciate their concerns about the executive structure, but we need senior, sophisticated, thoughtful financial leadership at this moment.
You're probably going to say asked and answered for this next email, feel free to continue. But it's from Dave Rooney. It says, I'm listening to your show right now and would like to know if one of the efficiencies being looked at is streamlining of MUN administration. It seems to have gotten a little bloated, is what Dave is saying.
So I've heard that a lot from folks, and absolutely, that is a piece of the puzzle. Some time ago, again, prior to my start date, there was a town hall held internally for our learning community. And there were a number of, I think, very generous, thoughtful suggestions about how we might reimagine administration. You know, my only ask is that, again, coming from away and being new, the language of administrative bloat, I would just ask for nobody at Memorial is sitting around with their feet up on a desk eating the bonbons. That's not happening. People are busy. People are busy. Now,
highlights from a previous Auditor General's report.
Maybe chocolates.
Yeah, there you go.
Fair.
Okay.
I did read it.
Yeah, I know.
Front to back.
Yeah.
But what I would say is those are people.
Yeah.
So we have difficult decisions to make. Memorial has made difficult decisions. There are more coming. And I would just encourage people to approach those difficult decisions with the humanity, the kindness, the grace that our colleagues, current, past, future, deserve. Yes, we will be thoughtful. Yes, we will critically assess what this moment, what our enrollment trajectory over the course of the next 3 to 5 years is going to demand. Because again, enrollment is the number one driver of our revenue. So every single person vested in Memorial needs to be vested in enrollment, which is not just recruitment, it's retention to graduation. But in that conversation, and again, to your listener, I would just ask that while we do that, let's demonstrate humanity, grace, and kindness to folks.
Yeah, just think about people involved on
People.
all levels of things.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's my ask.
And this, I'll just read it. And a text came in. I want to express my disappointment with the abolition of the Harris Center. Memorial University belongs to the people of our province. There are so few venues where the university connects with the general public. The Harris Center is vital to the connection between the community and our university. Just echoing statements again. Just on the Harris Center.
I hear that. I would respectfully suggest, I give you another example of the Botanical Gardens.
Yeah.
This is a great example of the university engaging with the public, whether through summer camps or through field trips or through science-based research work that's happening there. It happens every day. It must continue to happen. We all expect it to continue to happen.
Let me see, where's that quote? These changes are required to remain a financially sustainable and vibrant community in response to chronic underfunding, changing government policies, and social, technological, and economic disruption. This university, and I'm changing that, will look different, but our commitment to learning, discovery, and engagement remains the same. Now, these are your quotes from Sheridan, your previous job. You went and like November 26, 2020, so November of last year, Sheridan College says it's putting 40 programs on hold, laying off staff as it faces a dramatic drop in enrollment. The college estimates that it will have about 30% fewer students next year, resulting in a $112 million drop in revenue. So you've been here before. Why would you go from that to this on purpose? I'm very curious.
So I get that question a lot. So
I know. I heard
students stop me in the hallway today. I come from an athletics background, and a student stopped me in the hall today, and somebody from swimming, which is actually my sport, my daughter's sport, stopped me in the hall today, and she said, "Please don't take any offense, but why did you come here?" Very honest answers. Two of them I'll give you. Sure. The first is that when I was a graduate student studying in human development and in teaching and learning, Memorial was, and I would argue still is, the hub of Canadian-based research on the means by which we position students for success. And I don't think there's any secret to that. So the recipe that positions learners for success, and this is what I was telling students this morning, is that they have to feel like they belong. They need to feel like they're part of a community. They need strong relationships with faculty. They need to feel like their lived experiences, the unique lived experiences that they bring to the table, are valued. And I would suggest to you and to every supporter of Memorial that if we can't make that happen here across Newfoundland and Labrador, I'm not sure where that can happen in this moment in history across the country. So the warmth, the generosity, the strong sense of belonging, community, the pride. As somebody who studies transitions into university, through university progression, and then out of university to being a good human, to being a contributor economically and socially, if the foundation of that is a strong sense of belonging and feeling like you're part of something bigger, a community, then I have always held Memorial as the standard in that space. And right now, learning is hard. Universities are under stress. I saw this opportunity to lead at a place that believes what I believe, that belonging matters, that community service matters, that students should be at the center of everything we do. And so I describe having been pulled here. It was not part of the plan. But I really feel like I was pulled here. The second piece of that is that my partner's family is not from Ontario or from Toronto, and he wants out. And so I was so excited to be here professionally, but Ken and I are just ecstatic to make Newfoundland and Labrador our new home.
You talk about a 6-month update, and you're here for your term is 6 years. So then in 5 years, where are we going to be? If through all the work you've been describing over in the course of this hour, where do you see things with 1 year left to your term?
Oh, I love that you're pulling my sightline out 5 years, because to be honest, for the last month...
Hey, you've been in the weeds of AG reports.
Yeah. And drinking from the fire hose.
Yeah.
Again, I can really relate to the first-year students who are a bit like deer in headlights this morning,
I'm
right?
lost in the
Yeah, where am I
tunnels.
going and how do I... Somebody said to me, I said to a learner today, like, what are you most worried about? And she said, I don't know where the bathroom is. And I thought, okay, that I can help with. But I have felt a little bit like that, right? Yeah. What's most important? I'm just going to go back to this imperative to deliver, support, foster a university that is both vibrant and viable. And in the vibrancy piece, I honestly think Memorial is positioned to deliver a student experience that is not just exceptional in its student centricity, but that is the best in the country. Mm-hmm. It should be. It absolutely should be. And the complexity of that shouldn't be lost on anybody. Students need to progress. We should not be admitting any student that we don't have full confidence is going to graduate. And if that graduation takes 5 years instead of 4, so be it. But it shouldn't be taking 7, 8, and 9 years. And we need, as an academic collegium, to focus on what the obstacles are to timely progression. We need to do that, and that hard work will begin in concert with our Senate. And they're vested in that equally, so I'm looking forward to working with them on that. The other side of that is that I will champion Memorial, and I will consistently remind government of their obligations. Universities matter, and delivering educated talent, good citizens, good humans matters. But I also think our autonomy matters. And so, I never lose sight of the fact that every time we go to and are increasingly reliant on government, the funding they provided thus far, it's not enough. It's not guaranteed. And so we need strategies that go beyond the hope that government will be positioned and inclined to continue funding us, and to develop a sustainable model ourselves, to take ownership for what that looks like going forward. So in 5 years, I hope we found that calibration so that we are as and more vibrant than we are today, but that we are on far more solid financial footing, which there's no shying away. There will be some contraction in that, given our current enrollment trajectory and our current spending relative to our revenue. But if we do this right, we will be both vibrant and viable.
Another email that came in just then is, which ties into what you're talking about. Hi, Adam. I would be interested in hearing Dr. Morrison's perspective on the size of MUN. We have about 60,000 children in the K-12 system. Does 18,000 students seem large for a province of our size? A CNA with a very high employment rate for graduates is about 6,000 to 7,000 students. Does this ratio make sense for our province and economy? And but this speaks to your the vision of where are we going with enrollment and the dollars and cents of it all.
Yeah. So I appreciate the question. Anybody who Googles demographics, Newfoundland and Labrador, 18 to 24, will be immediately struck by our reality. So the number, the decline, and again, that's not common across the country. There are some provinces who will see a reversal of the decrease in traditionally aged students over the course of the next 3 years. That will not be our experience. So we have some options on that front. We can work aggressively to recruit students from outside of Newfoundland and Labrador. They do tend to stay once they graduate, and we need them. So as a province, economically and socially, we can contemplate maintaining, if not reversing, the sharp decrease in international enrollment. Every indication federally is that that's not going to be feasible or possible, given where the government is going and their polling on this. So, I won't shy away from the difficult conversations about contracting. I think there are a multitude of ways to think about expanding what we do and how we do it. So if our goal is economic and social impact, we need to think more about teaching and learning across the lifespan. So the Education Accord, I think, speaks in really compelling ways about this. But we have a number of Newfoundlanders and Labradorans who are at a very different phase in their life journey. They may be contemplating retirement, or just before that, they may be contemplating a career change, or they may just want to try something new. How do we think about enticing, incentivizing them to come back and do something different? I had a great conversation with the president of CNA last week about where there might be new opportunities to collaborate. I come from a system where 60% of post-secondary learners are combining programs. And I would suggest to you that the combination of a 4-year honors degree with, for example, a potential graduate certificate that involved, 4-6 months of co-op internship. We do lots of that work, integrated learning at Memorial, but the combination of those types of learning, types of credentials, I think those are the types of questions that we're going to have to ask ourselves. But change is hard, and there's no avoiding that we do need to change. It's coming.
But it does fit under the early part of our discussion of what do universities owe the public, right?
Yes.
And it's interesting to hear, especially on the demographic end, of what might of the thought process of what could be there for folks in this province as it relates to Memorial University of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Yeah.
With 2 minutes left, as you move, you're going to finish here. You're over there saying hi to folks. What's the rest of your day and this week look like as president and vice-chancellor?
Oh, well, yesterday I was here. I was at the Fisheries and Marine Institute. I'm meeting with colleagues from the Marine Institute this afternoon. I'm going to be doing some welcoming up at the Signal Hill campus. We've got dignitaries coming in today, so I will be welcoming them. I will be back at some social events that our student union, Monsu, is hosting tomorrow. So that will be fun. Let's everybody hope for good weather. I'm headed to Grenfell campus on Thursday morning. So really looking forward to being back at Grenfell. I'll be at Labrador campus later this month. I love the first week of school. I was totally discombobulated because we didn't start on Labor Day. And I honestly think for, probably almost 40 years, Labor Day has been Labor Day for somebody in my line of work. So I am so excited to have learners back, and I can't wait to share with them and with my colleagues, faculty and staff, the learning that's ahead.
Janet Morrison, thank you for the whole hour. I know you've got a lot to be at. I will say, though, that 6-month mark, once winter comes, don't be surprised if you get another request in to kind of give us an update if you're up for it.
I'll look forward to it. Thank you for your time today.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, folks. Memorial University's new president and vice-chancellor, Janet Morrison there. If you have thoughts for us in the show, the signal at cbc.ca. You can call the signal line and leave a message, 709-576-5260. Looking ahead, so that's today, folks. Tomorrow it is a Tuesday in September. We're still in the grow season here, so that means it's going to be gardening day. Gardeners, the lines will be open for your questions and for your updates. And if you want to get those questions in ahead of time, the signal at cbc.ca. That's all the time we have for today, folks. Thank you for listening. Cheers.